revenge. Gunmen killed more than 120 people in a wave of attacks across Paris. Now, as they massacred scores of other diners and concert goers and launched suicide attacks outside the National Stadium. Authorities in France and Belgium have taken people into custody in the aftermath of the worst violence in France since World War II.
A state of emergency in France. A wave of 6 apparently coordinated attacks in Paris has left more than 120 people dead and 200 injured. A popular concert hall in the east of the French capital was the hardest hit. Witnesses have described how one of the several gunmen shouted Allah Akbar, God is greatest in Arabic, before the group opened fire, shooting members of the audience one by one.
We hid for 2 hours. There were 25 of us huddled together. We heard the shots from a Kalashnikov. It was as if people were being tortured. It was terrible. They were shooting them. It was butchery, carnage, dead people everywhere.
Police say all the assailants are dead, several of them killed by their own suicide vests. Elsewhere, 4 nearby restaurants and bars were also attacked, with at least 35 killed. In Saint-Denis, north of the capital, 4 people were confirmed dead, among them 3 bombers who detonated their explosives near the National Football Stadium, where France were playing against Germany. President François Hollande, attending the match, was evacuated before visiting the scene of the concert hall attack.
We shall carry on the fight, and it will be merciless, because when terrorists are capable of carrying out such atrocities, they must be certain they will face a determined France, a united France.
France has been on high alert since attacks against the satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo and a Jewish supermarket left 17 dead in January. These latest assaults come ahead of the arrival of world leaders in Paris for a major climate summit early next month.
Meanwhile, at least 10 people were killed and 5 more were missing after a French high-speed train derailed during a test run on Saturday. The victims were among the team of 49 technicians aboard the train. There were no other passengers. Another 37 people were injured, including 12 people in critical condition. Police said the cause of the crash had not been determined. A source close to the investigation said dozens of technicians were aboard. Saturday's accident happened with France on high alert, following a string of deadly attacks in Paris late on Friday. Now, Hillary Clinton, Liberal U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders and former Maryland Governor Martin O'Malley united in calling for the destruction of the jihadists accused of massacring at least 129 people in the French capital. Sanders urged that the Iraqi war, which then Senator Clinton voted to authorize in 2002, laid the foundation for the surging jihadist threats that once more sowed carnage on Friday.
Directly related to the growth of terrorism. And if we do not get our act together and listen to what the scientists say, you're going to see countries all over the world. This is what the CIA says. They're going to be struggling over limited amounts of water, limited amounts of land to grow their crops. And you're going to see all kinds of international conflict. But of course, international terrorism is a major issue that we have got to address today. The disastrous invasion of Iraq, something that I strongly oppose, has unraveled the region completely and led to the rise of Al-Qaeda and to ISIS. Now, in fact, what we have got to do, and I think there is widespread agreement here, is the United States cannot do it alone. What we need to do is lead an international coalition which includes, very significantly, the Muslim nations in that region who are going to have to fight and defend their way of life.
Let's come back to Kenya now. The world is remembering the victims of road accidents, and Kenya is holding a special memorial at the traffic park of Uhuru Highway. The day is set aside to reflect on the devastating impacts of accidents and measures to promote road safety. Let's now join our reporter Zinzi Kibiku, who has been following up on that story. Zinzi, if you could just tell us, how is the day faring so far? Thank you, Najma. Well, the event has just concluded. We had started early this morning at 8 o'clock a.m. at Railways bus station. The weather has been quite favorable, especially since we've been seeing rains in the capital city. And speaking of which, I got a chance earlier to speak to the Director General of the National Transport and Security Authorities, and he gave me a glimpse of how it is on the road, and the statistics, Najma, I must say, are quite scary. For example, when it comes to pedestrians in 2014, that number had dropped from 1,123 to 1,134, whereas for motorists, the number had increased from 287 to 200, from 215. Nevertheless, things are looking good. They have put certain implementations in place in order to tackle it, especially considering that Christmas season is right around the corner. Najma? Tell us some of the challenges that police face on the roads. Well, Thomas Barasa, who is the Deputy Traffic Commander in Nairobi, had earlier said that WhatsApp groups are formed by people in order to let one another know where traffic police cops are, and alcohol below, which kind of contributes to the challenges that they face on the road. And it's because of those WhatsApp groups that police are quite they are faced with challenges rather, and because of that reason, cameras will be deployed across the country in order to make sure that certain people are following traffic regulations. And on that note, I would like to bring in Winnie Muruge, who was once a crash victim, to help us tell us more about her incident and how it has impacted her life. Winnie, thank you so much for joining KTN News. You're a road crash survivor. How has this changed your life?
I got an accident 16 years ago, and it has been quite challenging. Basic things that you do every other day have become quite complex, but over and above, it has actually taught me how to be patient. It has also taught me how to be quite alert. I'm very conscious about what happens in my surrounding, and that challenge has actually turned to be a blessing in a way. I'm able to appreciate others and to appreciate the little blessings of life. Yeah.
Alright, Najma, that is Winnie. She is a road crash survivor. She's also a teacher at one of the local primary schools here in Kenya. She was a part of the 200 people who had participated in today's event. It's back to you, Najma. Thank you very much, Vumbi Kibiku. There, she will be giving us more details in our subsequent bulletins. Let us now go straight to Eldoret to the CAS Marathon. Moses Wakisi and Vin Washira are standing by to tell us how it's going on.
Yeah, Najma, as you've already put it, I know it has been a very, very entertaining day. Not only entertaining, but also we've had different athletes doing what they do best, and that is taking it to the track, running, and actually some of them emerging victors. And in today's 42 kilometers marathon race, Albert emerged victors. And there's something comparing the time differences in this year's edition and last year's edition. It seems last year's athletes did some quite more justice, because in today's time, Albert Correa clocked 2 hours and 21 minutes, about 1.4 seconds. That is just to show how difficult it was. I know a lot of people have been saying that at the high altitude, which Eldoret town is very, very much known to be, has actually made the athletes not to be at their best when they take it to the track. But in today's time, Albert Correa is the one who has bagged the 1.5 million Kenyan shillings, and that is the prize money. In the ladies category, Vare Jameli, who is also taking the marathon the first time, has clocked 2 hours 43.19 seconds, emerging the ladies victor. In the 10 kilometers we had Nicodemus Kiptum and also Alisa Prop. Alisa Prop, actually, she's been known for what she's been doing in the African sphere, clocking some very, very impressive times and winning medals even for Kenya. But something that has been very quite impressive, the organizers have tried to put it outright like doping is nothing that they wanted to be associated with, and that's why every athlete, after the completion of today's race, their samples have to be taken, and we're going to see if any athlete whatsoever tried to use some shortcuts so as to to imagine the pictures. I know a lot of people were asking if really is it true that maybe there's some other athletes who are going to try and take the job as a style and actually use shortcuts so as to win. Actually, in this year's edition of the International Marathon, that has not been there because there were the chips, the electronic chips that are being used in the start and also the end points of this race. So it has been a success. It is a success story, and each and every person right now, what is happening is some athletes are being given the medals, and still there will be a lot of entertainment in this side. There will be a lot of fun, and to the athletes who won this edition, congratulations to them. But many of them are saying that this is just the beginning for their state, and they want to do even more coming to next year's edition. Najma, I know you wish you were here, but you're not. It's me on this other side of the team, and we are making sure that our viewers get all that they need to get in proper and a very, very formal and nice coverage. Najma, back to you.
Thank you very much, Moses Wahisi and his team. Enjoy for all of us, but give us a comprehensive report in our next bulletins. Now, moving away from that, nearly 2 decades after the El Nino rains of 1997 triggered mudslides in western Kenya, climate refugees are still living in the danger zone in a temporary village they call the El Nino. Take a look.
November in Kenya means rain. Normally, farmers welcome the yearly short rains, but this year brings something more, El Nino. This season is widely predicted to bring the worst flooding to the East African nation since the devastating El Nino rains of 1997.
I had a sound like a bomb at the hill there. After a short time, about 20 minutes only, and I saw trees moving and falling down.
3 days and nights of torrential rain triggered a mudslide that destroyed homes and displaced 78 families. That number has now grown to an estimated 200 families who now live on government land in what was meant to be only a temporary displacement camp. They call the village El Nino. But for these climate refugees, it is no refuge.
The government told us that to get away from the area, even the area we have gone there is not good. It's a water tower also, and it is a government one. So we seek permanent solution from the government.
Kenya has allocated $163 million for El Nino relief. The rains have already begun, but out here, there is little evidence of government help.
We've been instructed to inform the people, those who are residing in a Nilo-prone area, to move to safer grounds, and we have done so.
But many of these families have no safe place to go. They receive no resettlement assistance from the government, despite petitioning for it many times over the years. The current national plan is to reclassify the El Nino campsite as government forest land, reducing the chance of landslides by planting more trees. Yet that leaves the question of where the residents will live, an ever more common situation as extreme weather events become the new norm.
Now, not far from the capital of Mozambique in Maputo, local authorities have responded to deadly flooding by knocking down homes in the area to dissuade people from returning to the flood zones.
On the outskirts of Mozambique, a major demolition plan is underway. Authorities hope that by knocking down houses from this flood zone, it can prevent people from returning to their homes and evacuate the area completely.
With the rural exodus, homes were built haphazardly in unsuitable areas. All flood areas must be emptied out, and we need to discourage people from building there.
Mozambique's low-lying areas are prone to flooding, especially during the rainy season. Since December, floodwaters have claimed the lives of nearly 160 people, left 177,000 homeless, and triggered a cholera epidemic. James Jr. and his family are no strangers to rising tides.
It's 2 months from the summer up until now that we have been flooded. We're lucky because the water hasn't entered our bedrooms. It's only in the corridors.
All the buildings here are being razed to the ground and an operation set to run until September. This woman was living here illegally and barely had time to recover her belongings. I don't know where to go with my children. I don't know what I'm going to do tonight. Authorities haven't given me anything, not even help. 400 homes in this area are being demolished, with a number of families being rehoused, although major problems still remain. Our old place was better. When it rains here, the water goes up to the roads and we're flooded. Estimated to be the worst floods in Mozambique since 2000, authorities hope the new homes may offer a longer-lasting solution. But even amongst some of those buildings, water is seeping in.
And in Madagascar, tropical storms have left tens of thousands of people in flooded homes. Take a look.
Struggling to carry on with everyday life in the Madagascan capital, Antananarivo. 2 tropical storms have hit the island nation in the past 3 weeks, leaving 80 people dead and 180,000 others battling against the floodwaters. All the children are sick. Adults have problems with their eyes and sore throats caused by germs in the dirt. Something has to be done. We complained to the district council but didn't get any help. And then we complained to the authorities. But no one cares about us. Madagascar is hit by cyclones and hurricanes every year. But with no means of protection and no flood evacuation system, they often cause considerable damage and disruption. Our feet are in water when we cook every day. There's nothing we can do about it. There's nowhere else to stand. We had to find some old bits of wood to construct a little passageway to move around the house. We wade through water to get to our beds. We can't even wash our feet before getting in, so the beds are all wet. These are the hardships we are living through every day. The government has appealed to the international community for help in assisting victims and rebuilding infrastructure. They expect the bill to reach €30 million, and the pressure for action is on, with fears diseases may emerge from the unsanitary conditions. So far we haven't received any help from the state, only from the World Food Programme, who made a visit here. It's a misery that we relive every year. Floods, garbage. Some people aren't strong enough to deal with it and get sick, and then we see infectious diseases emerge, such as the plague and cholera. Madagascar is already fighting against an outbreak of the plague that has killed 71 people since September. It's hoped help for these flood-hit communities will come quickly before more lives are lost.
Well, the festive season beckons and tourists, both local and international, are expected to visit Kenya. Tourist sites during the holiday. Now, Kenya's Lamu Island is renowned for its cultural appeal, and in November, there's an added attraction, the Lamu Cultural Festival.
Lamu, a small island off the Kenyan coast. In the 14th century, its old town was established as a slave trading post by Arab settlers. 700 years later, it is the oldest and best preserved example of Swahili culture, a long-stirred mix of Arab and African influences with European and Indian undertones. Lamu's narrow passageways and intricately carved doors, inspired by Arabic architecture, have survived the centuries almost unspoiled, as has its particular blend of traditional Islam.
Lamu is one area that still has a very unique culture and a very unique way of life.
With few resources besides its rich culture, the island welcomed the arrival of foreign tourists in the 1960s. but Lamu later suffered damage from flooding caused by El Nino. Terrorist attacks in Kenya in 1998 and 2002 also drove visitors away.
These problems really affected Lamu economically to an extent that the tourism industry was at its lowest ebb. So it reached a time that something had to be done to revive the local economy.
The community's answer was to create the Lamu Cultural Festival, now in its 7th year. Each November for 3 days, visitors to the island can sample traditional Swahili food and attend a number of cultural attractions, including a very popular donkey race.
The goal is to preserve the Swahili culture, to promote it, in a way to bring it back to life, and also to attract smart tourism around that theme to Lamu Island and the whole area.
The Lamu Festival now attracts about 20,000 visitors every year, many of them local tourists. But the event still keeps a village feel. Making guests feel at home, that's probably the most important component, locals say, of Swahili culture.
Now, in response to increasing violence in Burundi, ICC prosecutor Fatou Bensouda is warning against the commission of crimes against humanity in the country. Burundi is a state party to the Rome Statute. This comes as the UN Security Council adopted a resolution calling for stronger international action to prevent further grave crimes in the country. Now, the UN said there is need for urgent international action on Burundi. Civil societies have expressed serious concerns regarding language used by leaders that was reminiscent of the Rwanda genocide. Activists say Burundi president's speech has instilled fear while killings have increased. The cycle of violence which began with protests against President Pierre Nkurunziza's bid for a third term. Now, at least 240 people have been killed there since the demonstrations began in April. There are fears of a Rwandan-style genocide in Burundi, which also has a history of tension between Hutus and Tutsi ethnic groups. Nkurunziza was duly re-elected with 70% of the vote in July. Well, thank you very much for watching The Weekend at 1. Join me at the top of the hour for more news updates.